Hey, welcome back, everybody. I want to make a quick video. I've gotten a lot of requests for hey, can you please do a small block 400 build? Well, I happen to have a small block 400 here next to me, and I didn't do a video build on it. So one thing that I think that's important for everybody to understand is that for some reason there's this idea that the small block Chevrolet 400 is completely different than any other small block, and the reality is that it's like very similar to a 350. There's not a lot of differences. I'm going to show you a couple things that are different about it just so you'll know the difference, but for the most part, if you've done a 350 build or you watch one of the 350 builds or the 383, the assembly process and the machining process is very much like a 350. There's really not a lot of difference. So I have a 350 or a 400 here. This is a small block 400, and we'll get the pan off of it. One of the things that is distinctive about these in some cases is they will have a third core plug here. This particular 400 does not. Now the later ones, this is the later 400, 75, 76, and they eliminated that third freeze plug that the earlier ones had. They do have a Siamese cylinder. Now what that means is the cylinders in the two center cylinders in here, they don't have any space between them in the water jacket. They're married together inside, and so because of that, there's some differences in the head gasket and the holes that have to be drilled into the cylinder head and the deck of the block. There's a couple of holes that go in between the cylinders on these things, and they have to have the same holes drilled in the heads. Other than that, the heads are the same. The heads are the exact same head as a 350 open chamber head. In fact, these were 350 heads, and we just took and put the gasket on them. I have a video where I'm actually doing that, and we drill the head, the steam holes they call them, in the head, and boom, you got yourself a 400 head. Other than that, they're exactly the same. One of the other differences we have here is the balancing of the 400 is different. You'll know this is a 400 balancer, and if you'll notice, this has a cutout on it. The 350 and the other small block balancers are just neutral balancers. The 400 actually is weighted. So what you'll see here is they have a big cutout here, and what this is they've offset the weight on the balancer because the 400 is an externally balanced motor. That means that the balancer is weighted, and also the flywheel, which is not on here yet, is going to have a big weight on it. So that's one of the other differences. Other than that, it's basically the very similar. Now, the internals are a little bit different as well. You take the pan off of it, it takes the same oil pump. You can see we've got the oil pump on here. I always like to weld these on, and that weld looks like bird turd because I ran out of argon for my welder, but I do that for extra insurance. And this rod here that I have, a lot of guys will take and they will weld right to the cast iron here. You can do that, but I don't really like to do that. I actually got like 100 boxes of this stainless steel rod from a department store that advertised free scrap. These are actually hooks that were used to hang clothes, and it's just a stainless steel piece. And so I weld it. I go from the pickup screen here and I weld it onto the bolts of and that way I'm welding steel to steel. That's extra insurance. And of course you got to locate the height of your pickup before you do that, and that's why it's marked here. So as far as the internals go, and now it has a longer stroke crank, and this particular engine has an aftermarket scat crank in it. Just a stock replacement because the thrust was wiped on this motor. So we put a new crank in it. The connecting rods on the 400 is a shorter rod, which is really not the best setup. We like to have a longer rod just because of dwell time and so forth and rod angularity. But because of the longer stroke on the crank, the way they built the 400s, now you can build a long rod 400. You can put a 5.7 350 rod in this, but you have to use a different piston. This is just basically a stock 400 rebuild, and so what we did is we just went with this, we resized the stock rod. So it has a shorter rod, it has a longer stroke. The 350 has just under 3.5 inch stroke. The 400 has a 3 3/4 inch stroke, and it also has a larger bore. The bore size on a 350 standard is 4 inches, the standard bore on a 400 is 4.125. So we got a longer stroke, a bigger bore, but you can see if you look at it, if you know anything about small blocks, externally it's exactly the same. I mean, it takes the same cylinder heads, the same valve covers, it takes the same time. That's basically it in a nutshell with the small block 400. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there for you guys, because I actually haven't done a 400 build, but if you watch the 350 build, it's pretty much the same. One of the other things, I have a 350 cap here, and one thing you'll notice about the caps on the 400 is they have this, they're a little bit different. You'll notice on the 350 cap, what we have on the 2-bolt cap anyway, it just has this, basically this square shaped cap. The 400 cap is wider and it has this slope on it. So if you'll notice the 350 cap, it really just, there's a difference there. The 350 cap is going to just come straight down here, and then the 400 cap is much wider. So very similar in design as far as the cap goes, except for it is a wider cap, and they have this, they put this sloping outer area on the cap. So that's one of the ways that you can distinguish. Now they did make 4-bolt main 400s, but this is obviously not one of them. So that's it. There you have it. That's the 400. I appreciate you watching, and I will talk to you very soon, I promise.